All right, it is about through, so we're getting ready to be on.
There, I'm gonna just mute myself because they're all eating dinner and stuff. So.
All right, good to see faces, all of you. Hey, Marty, Jeff, Sandra, Jay, Stephanie, Pamela.
Sarah, you got quiet again.
Oh,
Okay.
let me do a sound check with you, Marty. Can you hear me, Marty?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I think we have a quorum here, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And our first item is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any changes? If not,
Sarah,
yes,
Sarah, I hate to tell you,
what?
maybe I cannot hear
I
you.
didn't hear you either.
Okay,
Hold on. All right, can you hear me now?
a tad better,
Yeah.
not much.
Um,
Have you increased your speakers on your computer, actually?
I've actually connected to my AirPods that have a microphone on them. Okay, how about now? Is that
No,
better?
not
No?
really.
All right, let me just try to use computer.
Do you have to have your ear pods in?
No, I would use them because y'all couldn't hear me last time. Let me just-
Maybe because that happens to me in the car, and sometimes it's better by me not having my earphones in.
All right, does this sound better now? Can you hear me?
It's kind of the same.
About
I'm
the
sorry.
same.
It's the same.
A laptop, but it's the only one I have with a webcam on it.
Is your speaker volume all the way up?
Yes, maxed all the way up.
Okay.
What else? Marty, why don't you for now lead us through approving the agenda in the minutes and get us into public comment.
You're better.
I
when
think
you're
you said the agenda.
Yeah.
I moved that we approve the agenda and the minutes as written.
I second.
Okay, just let me know if you cannot hear me at all. But I heard a second. Is everyone in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Everyone say aye. Okay.
Aye.
Agenda is sorry that my face is going to be right in your screen, but I'm trying to get next to the microphone. All right, agenda approved, minutes approved, and Stephanie, I'll just ask for those minutes, that all those attachments, just make sure when those are up online, like the survey results and I think our calendar that we approved, any attachments
Yes, ma'am.
up there too. All right, so next is public comment, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Skinner. How many did we have?
We have 4. They're all a little lengthy, but I don't think they'll go over time.
Okay, well, we'll just sit back and let you read those.
Okay. The first one is from Stacy Rains. As a parent of a CPE student, I would respectfully ask that option 4 be considered as the solution for the rezoning for the 2021-2022 school year. Our family lives on Landau Lane in Carriage Hill Landing. This neighborhood only has access to Highway 17 North upon exit. We are in agreement with option 4 that all points north of our neighborhood on Highway 17 North should continue to be zoned for CPE. This solution will ensure we are not having to drive past CPE to attend another school further away. I am also pleased to see that the predominantly African-American neighborhoods and corridors in our area will continue to be zoned for CPE with the selection of option 4. Thank you for your time and consideration. The next comment is from Beth, no last name given. While not in favor of being rezoned out of Carolina Park, option 4 seems to be fair in ensuring fewer students' families are impacted and draws clear lines on 17 without carving out specific neighborhoods, which would draw a strong case for a gerrymandering type of approach to rezoning. You should also consider the growth as there is still considerable development occurring in the following areas. Carolina Park, still seeing significant growth. Bees Crossing in Awendaw, new planned community with 90 new homes, zoned for Carolina Park, not included in options to be rezoned. Awendaw Village, new planned community with 41 new homes, zoned for Carolina Park, not included in options to be rezoned. Tupelo, still developing, zoned for Carolina Park, not included in options to be rezoned. Stratton, still developing, included in 3 of the 4 options to be rezoned for Pinckney Laurel Hill. Thank you, Beth. The next is from the Harriet's family on Locklear Lane, they said. I will have 2 kids affected by the rezoning. One of my kids has already been affected by the rezoning. He attended kindergarten at Laurel Hill Primary, and then he was rezoned to Carolina Park Elementary School for his 1st grade year. Then again, he will be rezoned back to Laurel Hill Charles Pinckney for his 5th grade year, having lived at the same address the entire time. Please consider the 5th graders grandfathering into Carolina Park for their 5th grade year. Also, my daughter started at Carolina Park her CD year. Please consider grandfathering the students who attend the CD program at Carolina Park when it opened. This will be the first class of the CD program to graduate from Carolina Park. Please consider option 3 or 4. My kids are currently only 1.8 miles from Carolina Park Elementary from their home. Rezoning my kids, they will be 3.6 miles from home to school. That is double the number of miles my children will have to travel to school. My kids can bike to school in under 10 minutes to their current school, and it would take over 20 minutes to bike to their rezoned school, Laurel Hill Pinckney, and staying on Highway 17, a major highway, for a majority of the time. Why should my kids have to pass their current elementary school, CPE, to go to another elementary school, Laurel Hill Pinckney? What is the demographic, income level, and race of the school when adding option 4 into Carolina versus taking these neighborhoods out of Carolina Park for option 1 and option 2? I think every school needs diversity. Thank you for considering option 4 of the rezoning and or grandfathering certain grades to stay at Carolina Park Elementary. And the last one is from Tamaray Tabaka. I just want to reiterate my previous email. I live in Cuppahee Landing and do not wish to have the extra burden of a longer commute, passing Carolina Park to get to Park West schools. I have several other reasons I am against the rezoning, especially rezoning past Charleston National and Stratton by the Sound. I am in favor of the option that includes Charleston National, Stratton by the Sound, and the area on Faison Road. I think that gives good numbers, room for growth, and does not make anyone have to go too far out of the way. I am also in favor of grandfathering 4th and 5th graders to keep Mr. Antonelli's statement to the kids that entered kindergarten in the opening year. Thank you. That is all.
All right, thank you very much. So next we'll get right into the Carolina Park rezoning, and I think we have 2 new maps to look at, option 3, option 4. So maybe DJ, should I turn it over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take it. Before I screen share and show these maps, just a quick summary. Initially, there was 2 maps that was requested to study, and that expanded onto 2 more maps, so a total of 4 maps. And I have those, and I'll present those to you today. So let me do a screen share right here. Okay. So let me back up. We're going to start at option 1 again. Option 1 was south of 17 up to Theodore Road. Option 2 went down to Lieben Road, including these neighborhoods here, and included north of 17 up to Faison Road. Option 3 was a recommended modification to option 2. We took that and we removed the neighborhood that is. That's, I'll pull it up. Excuse me.
Stratton by the Sound.
Stratton by the Sound, yes, thank you so much. Stratton by the Sound was removed from this option. And then option 4 is we recaptured Stratton by the Sound for that possible rezoning. So
Okay.
as we can see with option 3, our numbers went down. Option 1 and 2, we're at 290 and 293 total live-in students. Option 3 reduced it down. This is the smallest number, and that captures 146 live-in students in that area affected. And option 4 was 174 students of live in that zone.
Okay. Thank you for that information, DJ. And I guess I'll just, board members, maybe DJ or whoever is controlling up, put it up to option 1, and I think we'll just kind of take comments from board members as far as pros and cons. So this is option 1. Board members, do y'all have any comments on, you know, the pros and cons of if we went with this map?
Go ahead, Pamela.
Pros are, I don't have any. Cons are too many students moving over.
All right, and Kristen, you were going to say something?
Mine was similar. I didn't have a lot of pros to this one. My con is mostly, you know, that Theodore Road and it's pretty far. And that is, I mean, it's not even just kind of driving by Carolina Park, but it's a good drive from there. So if we could not transfer those kids out, I think that would be the way I would rather go.
All right, and Marty, did you want to say anything about option 1?
No. Let me see something. Okay, no. My thought is on what I had about option 2, not option 1. I'm okay.
Okay. And I mean, I'll just note, if y'all can hear me, I will just note that to me, it's a very odd type of rezoning to go all the way up 17 on the right-hand side, and especially ignore the part that's right across the street from Park West Schools. But one of our guidelines is to make a 5-year plan, kind of to look to the future as much as we can these days. And, you know, I know you don't like to talk about this so much, but there are future plans for all middle and high school. And so whenever that day comes, whether it's 5 years or down the road, I think it would be really strange to pick students who are in Park West schools and go to Cario and rezone them up to Allendale. So I think this map it makes it kind of strange to look at Park West schools going all the way up to Theodore Road versus you know, coming down and I don't know. I just see that as problematic when it comes to if we actually are going to be sending students down to the Allendale schools. One of the first ones we would look at is going to be Theodore Road, and to take them, if they're in elementary school at Park West, to me it just seems kind of backwards. And that's just one kind of tangent. We have to kind of think about the future, but generally I agree with you that it is too many students, because even though that's in the range of the recommendation from the school district, we're in a very strange situation in that 3 years ago, we moved 650 students from Park West schools to Carolina Park, and 3 years later are being asked to move kids from the exact same neighborhood back to Park West schools. And that's just a huge chunk, and I don't think that's the way to plan for the future. I do think some students obviously are going to have to go because there is no space, but the students that we choose to go, I think they need to be the students we know 100% sure are going to stay at Park West schools and not be rezoned to Carolina Park when it's expanded. So those are just my thoughts on that one. But so the next one is option 2. And Marty, I think you said you had a comment about this one.
Oh, option 2. Yeah, I agree that Theodore Road, because I have driven and driven this weekend, so I could refresh my memory since I made a mistake about Stratton on the Sound. I had some wrong information, but anyway, I like this one okay.
Okay, so this one, you like this one better than option one.
I do.
All right, other board members? Any comments about this one on the pros, cons? But it's the same number of students, basically, give or take a few.
I like it better than one because of proximity and distance, geography, I guess. But it, you know, again, I also drove this whole area last week and you know, really saw how Landau Road, I believe it is like directly across the street from the entrance to the school. So this does seem a little, you know, geographically kind of not my favorite either. Just for that same reason, the driving by one school to get to the other.
Well, let me ask you this. I might have kind of missed something. Do you see any scenario? That's what a lot of our emails from parents have said as well. But do you see any scenarios where they do not have to drive by Carolina Park Elementary?
I mean, I think really only, you know, not that we're, not to jump ahead, but option 4 really doesn't seem to be, I know, or it's either 3 or 4. I can't remember which one. The one that, both of them actually, because even if it's Stratton by the Sound, if they come out through the Charleston National exit, then they are not literally, I mean, they're very close, of course, because these schools are very close together, but they're not literally driving by the entrance to the school in quite the same way. And as, of course, as we know from all of our emails and from driving around, there's more than one entrance to Stratton by the Sound, but
yeah,
it is the way, you know, through Charleston National that brings you closer to Park Ave, to Park West Boulevard.
Well, the difference between 3 and 4, as I see it, is Stratton on the Sound. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Being added or taken away. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that. 3, if Pamela, did you want to say anything about option 2?
I think pretty much what Kristen said. Again, geographically, yes, I'm not in favor of it because I don't want people to pass another school. Also, I just think that the numbers are too high. I would feel more comfortable giving more of a cushion to Laurel Hill and Pinckney as well. So we don't have any situation in which we are rezoning kids back to Carolina Park Elementary.
Yeah, and I'll just, agree. I think y'all all said you like option 2 better than 1. I agree. And I mean, we know when rezoning that sometimes students will have to drive by a school or go to a school that's not as close as the other one, as in Beckham and Wonders. That's just the way our town, our very densely populated town, is worked out. But yeah, this 2 is definitely less people driving kind of out of the way capacity. But these schools are very close, so I'm trying to keep an open mind about that, because we can't only rezone on what's closer, or there's got to be the other factors to consider, which I feel the same way about not moving that many students out this year or next year. But I do like the that Phase and Road part that's actually a lot bigger than, it's small, it's a lot bigger than the students. I think they're only in the very bottom left corner. That's where the population is, but that would, if anything else is built there, and I don't think we even had any kind of plans that there were, but
First one, 74.
yeah, we've covered, by using these, Phase in 17, I mean, there's a reason we try to use these larger roads than cutting through And even on this one, that's a funny line on Lebanon Road, but you know, it is what it is. But I think we're ready to move on to option 3. And so that one we haven't really talked about as much because it's new to the board meeting. So who wants to go first on this one?
Okay, just to give a little further description on where this line breaks. So we're going to follow north on 17 and actually a little bit past 780 feet past the old Rusty Rudder restaurant. That's where that line will take a break to the right. And what it does, it follows along power lines, which is a good natural divider upon where to draw this line. And that'll come down into right where the Stratton by the Sound neighborhood would start. And then that's when it breaks back down towards this direction and encompasses all of Charleston National.
Okay, and just to clarify, so that includes all of the Charleston National neighborhood.
Correct.
All right, any comments, pros, cons about this map? It brings our numbers down a good bit. It's a lot fewer students. But what else do y'all have to say?
I'll go first. I like this map a lot better than option 1 and 2. I do think the numbers are a little low. I also, like all of you, drove through that neighborhood to get a feel for the roads and how people can come in and out. So I feel very comfortable with option 3 or option 4, but option 3 numbers are a little bit low.
Hey,
Did I hear an agreement?
no, sorry. I was telling my dog not to
Oh.
grab something off the counter. Sorry about that. I would second basically exactly what Pamela said. This is, a little more conservative, but I feel like it suits our needs better instead of switching kids back and forth. When I guess I would feel a little different maybe if there wasn't eventually going to be the expansion at Carolina Park too. But yeah, we don't want to just move kids every 3 years or whatever the time frame there would be.
Marty, did you want to say anything about this one?
No, I think I already did. I jumped ahead and didn't mean to. I was looking at the whole thing and yeah. And I agree with Pamela and Kristen, the numbers are low here.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
numbers, I agree. The numbers are much lower and the lowest of all 4. And I mean, I'm kind of leaning on they're too low.
Yeah.
For me personally, is my vote. This, unless one of y'all convinces me otherwise, it's too low. It's well, when we get to 4, it's not a very straight line. It does make one wonder about funny lines. And so if y'all don't have anything else to say about that, I think, and just look, and these are live-in numbers, so that's the numbers less than that on actual students that attend the schools, I believe. Is that correct, DJ?
Yes.
That's just CCSD students, so several of them could attend Jenny Moore, East River Montessori, or wherever. BJ, do you happen to have that number on hand, the live-in and attend? I think we have that.
Yeah, let me pull up real quick.
Just because that number is just getting really small. I think we need to be certain we know how many students we're talking about.
Let's see. Didn't have that at the ready. Let me give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. Yeah. So
Option.
all right. Let me make sure I'm not sharing the wrong screen. Okay. Okay, let me see. So option 3, the live and attend of that is, as you can see, 146. What that kind of translates into, find. So you're asking what that translates into actual students where they attend?
Right.
I think somewhere we have the live-in, as in we know the big number. And I mean, sometimes we calculate it.
Okay.
87,
I
but
think I have understanding what you're asking now.
How many of the 146 attend Carolina Park?
Attend Carolina Park. Okay, so that data was not requested for option 3 or 4, so I do not have that. Who currently? I know that the majority of these students were attending Carolina Park. Not very many were attending outside of their neighborhood school, if that makes any sense. So if I know there's onesie twosies elsewhere, but when we broke down these additional options, I did not capture, I was not asked to capture that.
yeah, I mean, I think in our district, we've used anything from 85%, 87%, but I think you're right. When I've looked at numbers in this area, which is great news for our schools out this way, is that there's a higher percentage of kids that stay at their own neighborhood schools. So we know it's a little bit less than 146 as far as actual students, but you never know who's going to come back. We need to be prepared for the total amount. So I guess let's move ahead to option 4.
So option 4 resembles option 3, very similar, other than instead of excluding Stratton by the Sound, it includes it in this option, and it just follows along the Macoma Drive.
Does it, that line, the first line though is still the one that's like so many feet by Old Rusty Rudder, right? And then it picks
Yes.
up Macoma, is that?
That's correct. This 90-degree turn here off of 17 is still at that same location, a little bit past the Old Rusty Rudder. It runs along the power lines.
Okay, and y'all, board members, I looked back to some old information we had, not old as in outdated, but in a few meetings ago. So for area 3, if you have Charleston National and 4, and we had that number 146, it was 127 that are actually Carolina Park students. I don't have, like DJ said, we didn't ask for that breakdown when you put Stratton by the Sound back in, but that kind of gives you an idea of how many, what the numbers might be. So instead of 174, it might be a little bit less that are actual students attending Carolina Park. So any
So we're 28 students different. Did I do that right? 6, 8, 14, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. 28, if you compare 3 and 4, number wise.
Right, 28, and that brings to a good point that I know we have some information that, Stratton by the Sound is not built out. And so, Angela, if you don't mind, because I want to make sure all the board members understand those numbers we received about, I think it was the 57 homes. And I believe, to make sure I got this right, that's the total number when they're completed. I know we're going to want to know, well, how many more is that between now and when it's completed? Are we talking 12 kids or 2 kids or 20 kids? Angela?
Yeah, I can speak to some of that just for some clarification that I want you guys to have a good idea of what you're looking at. Jeff's talked about the possibility of the expansion and the timeline for when that would even occur. So one of the biggest things I want you guys to understand is that when we're looking at developments and some of the idea of the number where it came from is that was just looking at permitted development and growth. So even if we just look at 2024's peak of what's been permitted and developed and enrollment projections, you would have to be at 159. You would need at least 159 students. And that's not counting if you've got students that are transferred and decide to come back. That's not taking into that perspective. The biggest thing I want you to understand, you all, is that there's 467 units out there that are not permitted right now. They're not in this figure of 159 or anything. That's why we overestimated and factored in, because that's 93 additional students that could possibly be coming to Carolina Park. And those permits they could happen tomorrow. So I just want you all to understand that that's why when looking at the developments, permitted and unpermitted, looking at transfers, the live and attend, even down to your special ed numbers and the potential that they could possibly grow by just a few, but factoring in all of those different things, that's why we encouraged the number so that you're not having to do this in 3 years again.
So if I can just piggyback onto that, contrary to a comment I heard a number of times tonight, that we're worried about having to send kids back to Carolina Park. I don't see that happening at all. As Angela looked at the numbers, Park West is flat. It's Carolina Park's AOR, area of responsibility, that's growing. And so if you, as Angela said, if you shoot low, you're going to be back at the table moving more kids to Laurel Hill and Pinckney. You shouldn't be worried about moving kids back to Carolina Park. It's having a higher number rather than a lower number. So when we look at 495 empty seats in Laurel Hill and Pinckney, we do not believe those seats are going to be filled with Park West residents. So again, if there's a substantial vacancy rate there, it's going to be very hard to justify an expansion to bring kids back or to build it before it's necessary if there's seats that are less than 3 miles down the road. That's the distance between the two schools, less than 3 miles. So I just want to put that out there. But I know you all have a hard decision, but I just want to make sure that you fully understood from Angela where she came up with the numbers and what was projected and why we made the recommendation on the numbers.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, and that helps.
Yes, ma'am.
And just look, and to make sure the number, Angela, that you said about 93, the potential for 93 more, was that specifically Stratton by the Sound, or what area was that with the 93?
It's 467 single family. What that is that's growth in Carolina Park. It's Tupelo. There's a couple of homes in Stratton by the Sound that have not been permitted yet. But when I added all of those units up, it came up to 467 single family units that are unpermitted at this time. And if you look at how we come up with yield rate, that's 93 additional students.
Right. Okay. But is there do you happen to have any feel of how much more, since we're looking, the only difference between 3 and 4 is that one neighborhood that we know is not, I mean, as far as what is on the books for that particular neighborhood, because we know it's not finished. Do you know how many more homes, or approximately how many students?
Unpermitted came up to only 9.
9
that were unpermitted.
unpermitted.
And what was permitted was what I had given you, which was 57.
Okay. But, okay, so 57 permitted, but we know those all haven't been built. So what I'm saying is we know how many students live there now and go there. And so I guess, I'm not sure that number, we know when it's finished and the 57, the yield is this much, but we kind of already have half the picture. And actually, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, the yield we got from those 57 homes was something like 12. And we're already looking at, there's 28 right now that go there and they're not finished. So I just want to make sure, and I might have it all confused, but I want to make sure
Yeah, the yield rate just takes a percentage. That's not a guarantee. There could be multiple children going there that we don't know about. The yield rate just gives us an idea of just a percentage that's been established over time in these developments. So it's not a set standard. It's just a percentage. It's just like enrollment projections. We're using past trend data to come up with projections.
Okay. All right. Well, That
Angela,
helps, but then we should know that it's doubled what was projected. So we also need to keep that in mind, because when we, when this board rezoned Lang, it opened at capacity. So I think it is safe for this board to assume that the trend in this area is that it's just growing and growing, and the numbers are more school age students going than even that projection. I mean, it's more than double for Scott Sound right now. It's 28 kids instead of 12. I mean, these might not sound like a lot of kids, but when we're talking about the CD program, it's 40 and it's temporarily relocated, it's going to make a difference. What were you going to say, Pamela?
okay, Angela, I'm sorry. I know I'm going to drive you crazy because I'm going to ask you slightly the same question.
That's fine.
But okay, so when I drove through Stratton-on-the-Sound, 57 homes permitted, meaning those are the ones that are built right now, or those
Some
are
of those are built and some of those are not built.
okay, so 54 of them could be built. We don't know. There's no,
Correct.
okay, all right, because I saw a few lots that still needed to be built. Okay, so I was just trying to figure that part out.
Correct.
So that yield, like you said, the 12 that we know is actually 28 could be more like 34 at some point.
It
So
could be. Just remember that the yield rate is based off of Mount Pleasant. It is the D2 yield rate. That's why it's an average. But we know that the north area, that end of the north area, probably does have a higher yield rate than other parts, and other parts is bringing that yield rate down.
right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, thank you. That helps us, because I know I got confused over thinking there was 57 more that were coming in that particular neighborhood, but I think we all understand that now, that we, you could have a few more, but in 5 years, those kids could have gotten older, and we just kind of have to look at trends like Angela was talking about. So okay, what are the pros and cons of this one? It's a few more students than option 3. Anybody?
I mean, I like option 4 because, again, I think if this was a normal time, we would possibly maybe even look for another map or something that gave a little more. I just kind of feel like we don't quite know what's going to happen this particular year and how many kids are going to come and transfer in from private schools or whatever. And with that in mind, I'm going to take the chance that we might have to rezone again in a few years and put a few more kids over to Laurel Hill. If that's the worst case scenario, then I'm fine with that, because I kind of feel at this point, none of us really know what the real numbers are going to be in the fall.
Anybody else want to comment?
You're going to make a guess anyway. I mean, I know these are challenging times. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But you still, you hope you can get close, but it's still a guessing those numbers. So what's our goal here? We've got 4 maps now. And so do we have a magic number that we're looking for, since we keep talking about the numbers?
We have 2. We have the school district, and I appreciate all its work, because I think we had almost most of this when we started the project, because that told us what the numbers were and the brief that they sent us. And so the recommendation from the school district was to move, how much is it, 250 to 275?
Yeah, that's what I've got written down. Yeah.
And then at our last board meeting, when we asked for these 3 maps, it was because the general feel of the majority of the board members during the meeting, and after all the response from our constituents, was, questioning, is that the long-term solution for this problem? Which we hate that we have this problem, to have to rezone the school when that just opened 3 years ago. And so, so then we said, okay, what if we go lower? If there's any way to divide that area which at one point we called Area 2. And I know Pamela and I, one time, we just thought, where can, there is very difficult to divide that. And the only way to do that is to take out Stratton Sound. So anyway, so 3 or 4 would be in combination with a advocacy from our board to the county board to expedite the expansion of the building, which, and we got the $10 million, and the earliest it could be done if everything, was perfect, was 2022. So it's a matter of, it's a risk either way. And it's a tough decision. So, Marty, do you see, we started with that 250, 275, and we saw it go all the way up to Theodore Road, and we thought, this doesn't make any sense to send all the kids back. And then what are we going to, when it expands, we've got numbers 10 years out that has the enrollment at 100 more students that it has now. Now we know there's unpermitted and more will come, but that's 10, to me, I feel like the long-term solution for, Charleston National, Stratton by the Sound, is to send them to Park West schools, because that's where they are going to be whenever the school is expanded. There's no chance they would ever be rezoned back. And I hear what Jeff is saying, that it wouldn't be likely we would send any of these people back. I'm not so sure about all the way up to Theodore Road. That's just, I don't know. I also have a problem with, I'm going off on another tangent, but for that school being zoned for everyone that lives in Carolina Park Elementary and in the neighborhoods around it, I don't, it's very divisive to me to go up all the way up the right. To me, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, but mainly, Marty, to answer your question, is the reason we went lower is because we felt, what, let's move what we need to get the school through the next couple of years. And we're pushed for the building to be expanded for 300 more students. What do you think, Marty?
Well, I just think that we keep moving the lines and everything. And one thing we have to think about are the neighborhoods, how they're affected when you, but I feel like, we worked so hard to get the numbers that they wanted us to come up with. And now I feel like we're kind of off. I think we're off course here, what we really want to do neighborhood wise. When you think about how you rezone, you just don't go and cut a neighborhood off when kids go to school together, even if there's, property between neighborhoods or something, they still, go to school together. And I just, I think we've gotten away from, we're I don't know what we're doing really. To tell you the truth.
Which maps are you talking about when you're talking about dividing neighbors? Are you talking about all of the maps?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I just want us to think about that when we select a map.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of our guidelines, is we don't divide neighborhoods. And so
Yeah.
that's why we very carefully have gone around Charleston National, Stratton by the Sound, all the different, I don't think any of these lines go through any neighborhood. But, which, if you tell me what area you're concerned about, we should talk about it.
Well, option 4, I think is more inclusive than option 3. and there's just a difference of 28 students or so. So I don't know how much difference that's going to make. It's better to have more, higher number than not. That's just what I'm thinking,
Well, Marty, we know you like straight lines and clean lines. So what do you like, the line on option 4 that goes through to Macoma
Yeah.
versus,
Versus option 3. Now, if we need more numbers, I think we need to go to 2. Option 2.
right. Okay, well, does everyone, we kind of have 2 different, 1 and 2 go together and 3 or 4. So do we want to move, 150 students?
Right.
250. And so,
Exactly.
I mean, that's between option 3 and 4. Does anyone prefer 3 over 4 or the other way around? What is everyone?
Here, can you show? Well, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take a screenshot of those live-in numbers so I can see them both in front of my face. Can you pull up option 4 again in a second? Just so I can see those.
The differences on grade levels, yeah.
Yeah, and then can you do 3 one more time?
Amelia's staying upstairs.
Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to see where the, if there was a big jump in a certain grade.
Was there? Went too fast. Did you see anything that made you think that numbers were going up? I mean, I'm looking at second grade has got more students.
Well, yeah, the lower grades, which is what made me kind of give me a little pause.
Go back to 4 again, if you would, please.
Yep.
All right, let's look at those grades. First, it's 35. Okay.
It is interesting to see that the first and second have, I mean, this is just a few numbers, but, those will be coming through over the next 5 years. And I think it's important what Jeff brought up a point about, I can't remember the number, 500 and something students at the Park West School. So Jeff, don't you have that in front of you, or CJ does, that we have over 500 open seats at those 2 schools, how it's divided? I mean, I know we've gotten this before, but just maybe thinking about it.
We have a capacity at those schools of 946 and 862 respectively. That's 1,800 seats. And there's 1,300 kids there now. Laurel Hill called me, they got 10 empty classrooms. And we've obviously verified it. And the point I was making earlier was that we're not seeing increases in the number of kids in Park West. All the developments you all have talked about are all zoned for Carolina Park.
Mm-hmm.
All of these developments that still have build outs.
Yep, because we're going north.
Yes, ma'am.
And if anybody's interested, I mean, I've got my projection figures in front of me. So Pinckney with the capacity of 862 by 2029, they're looking at 567 students projected. Laurel Hill's capacity is 946 by 2029. We've got them projected at 583. So they're steadily decreasing.
So with those 10 empty classrooms, would you figure 25 or 30 students per classroom? What would that be? 25 or 30 would be 300 students if you did 30.
Max allocations do not go up to 30. We tend to, for the 5th grades, we'll have a max of 25.
20, okay. All right, so 250.
Thanks, BJ.
Yes, sir. And that changes throughout grades too. Kindergarten will have, a different number than fifth grade, just by the nature of the classrooms.
Uh-huh, okay.
Just for allocation purposes, Marty, just to let you know, CD classrooms are usually up to 20, no more. Kindergarten's 25, first grade's 20, second grade's 25, third grade's 25, fourth
Right.
grade's 28, fifth grade's 28. That's for allocation purposes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh-huh.
I have a question. So I just want to make sure that I'm right here. So if we look at option 4 and we add in option 4 into Laurel Hill and Pinckney, the number shows that for Pinckney, for example, we will then have 769 students when we have a capacity of 862. So that brings us to basically a little less than 100 seats left at Pinckney. That to me is a nice cushion, all things considered, this year. Am I correct in reading those numbers right?
So repeat that again. I'll verify. You said
So
with option 4.
with option
um,
4,
That would show Pinckney to have, if all these students attended, that Pinckney would have an enrollment of 769.
correct.
Yeah.
And we have a capacity of 862, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so a little less than 100 is what we're walking into by putting these kids over. That's the number I feel comfortable with.
Do you happen to have that, Pamela, that same for Laurel Hill Pinckney? I mean, for Laurel Hill Primary?
Yes. So
Yeah.
with option 4, if you guys decided on this option moving over, Laurel Hill would have an enrollment of 721.
And a capacity of 946.
Yes, sir.
And are both, I mean, this is just out of curiosity, because I saw Curio was on the list for possible expansion at some point. Are those two schools built out, Laurel Hill Primary and Pinckney? They don't have any, I mean, I'm not saying they need to be expanded. I'm just wondering, are those buildings built out, or are they able to be expanded ever in the future?
So expanding Carolina Park, expanding Laurel Hill or expanding Pinckney would take the big box spaces beyond their normal capacity. So media center, cafeteria, et cetera. But that's not to say it can't be done. Those schools had trailers when they were over capacity. So we've had trailers at those schools before that took it beyond their building capacity. It's just not optimal for students, obviously, to have to deal with shorter lunch periods, eating earlier in the afternoon rather than around lunch, eating in the late morning rather than at lunchtime. Those are the changes that have to be made when a school's over capacity with the big box spaces. Kids might have less time in the media center, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. I was just wondering about that. We knew Moultrie was sitting there with, it always could be expanded, and it was, so I didn't know where that was. All right, so we do have to make a decision unless someone wants to go a different route. So board members, do you have any other questions or thoughts, comments that you want to say about any of these 4 options?
I do not. I need to step away, but I can hear you. I'm just on the other side of the room. I'll be right back.
All right. I'm not sure if that meant she can participate in a motion. Let's see. All right, so anyone Anyone have a very strong feeling like to make a motion on which one of these maps we're going to approve? Make a motion, and we will. Yeah.
Okay, so what if we boil down to, Sarah?
It's 1, 2, 3, or 4. I mean,
Oh, okay. So 1 and 2 are still on the
well, we didn't.
block.
Well, we could do it that way. I mean, if you wanna not. I mean, we know 1 and 2 are kind of the same number of students, and 3 and 4 are the same number of students. If it helps anyone to not focus on a set, we could do that, but someone also could just make a motion to, I'll hear a motion, you know, you can make a motion to, I think the easiest thing is to make a motion on which option somebody prefers, and we need to whittle it down unless someone feels like there needs to be more conversation between 2 particular maps. Marty, do you feel like there's?
Yeah, I'm just still, you know, have a concern over the numbers, and you know, I've looked at neighborhoods. I'm certainly, you know, thinking about that as well. But I just want to make sure that whatever we do, you know, whatever we do, that we're not doing it for a year or two. Because, you know, here we are back 3 years later, and I just want to make sure that that we're doing as much as we need to do for this rezoning time frame. Does that make sense?
It does, and yeah, I'm going to be passing the buck big time here. But if we're here, if this board is here 3 years to rezone again, it's because the building wasn't expanded, and I think that is a problem. I don't think we should send that many students back, especially at Peatney. I think we do need a cushion. I think in 5 years, this board does need to look at more of a comprehensive plan, kind of at all levels. You know, we had concerns about the high schools and what, you know, it's always hard to piece things together when you piece this and you piece that, and then next we're being asked to piece again Mount Pleasant Academy, which we just done that one as well. So it, you know, I did not like that idea, Pamela, of the comprehensive, at least look at it in 5 years of, you know, where are our students going? But I'm not worried about, I'm more worried about rezoning a bunch of students all along the right side of 17 down back to Park West School. It doesn't make sense, of course, geographically, but that's not it. It's just something not right about building a school. If everyone had known that this area was growing so fast, then would they have expanded it, built it to capacity? We don't know, but I mean, I kind of think we're kind of correcting it by taking off as much students as we can to get, we don't want overcrowded schools, but then push for the expansion.
The only point I'd like to make, Ms. Johnson, again, I'm just putting the facts on the table. Again, if you're moving less kids, banking on we're going to get the expansion, and there are still significant number of seats in those 2 schools, that's a decision the county board's going to have to make. So again, Angela mentioned how the enrollment in those 2 schools is declining with Park West. And if there are a significant number of seats, that is going to weigh in on when this expansion's done. It just is. It's going to be a part of the conversation.
Sorry, I dropped out there for a minute. My computer died. The only thing is, Jeff, I think there's also just a little concern. And again, I'm not saying that's happening tomorrow, but you know, we have expansion in different parts of Mount Pleasant, and it might not necessarily but be exactly where Pinckney and Laurel Hill is right now. But at some point, our schools are going to move more north, and that could affect Pinckney and Laurel Hill at some point. So I just think that we just need a little more of a cushion. I mean, putting 270 kids really gives us a very small margin of space for both of those schools.
I understand the position.
Right. Pamela, would you like to make a motion? No one, everyone seems shy.
Oh, okay, I'll make a motion. I would like to make a motion to approve option 4.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay.
Miss Kristen,
Yes.
is Kristen here?
Yeah, she said.
Oh, okay.
She was a yes.
Got my
All right.
circuits going on here, but I'm here.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we have that. We have option 4. Next, we need to talk about grandfathering options. That our normal standard grandfathering option is to, for in this case in elementary, is to give rising 5th graders for the year. Oh, sorry, you're just did something funny. Anyway, standard grandfathering option is to allow rising 5th graders of that year that they're rezoned the option to remain. And if they choose that option, there's no transportation. They're considered a transfer student. But that's what we did when we rezoned Moultrie. We did that with the elementary school students who moved from Snee Farm, Jenny Moore to James B. Edwards. And that's kind of been the standard thing. But if someone has an idea of, no, we can't do that because we don't have, we need to send as many kids as possible, or if you think that any additional grandfathering options, let me know, speak up. And we're not talking about this coming school year. We're talking about just the rezone year. How do y'all feel about the grandfathering option?
I have a question, and I know that it was a comment made in public comment, but and I don't have the dates in front of me, but so for 21-22, the kids who will be 5th graders, were they the CP class or no, they were the 1st grade. They were the kindergarten class.
They were the kindergartners that were moved from Park West schools to Carolina Park. So any
Okay.
CD students, and that wouldn't have been all of them because that, that's the application thing. And I feel that's a little different. Not that it
Okay.
doesn't matter, it does matter, but yeah, those would be rising 4th graders. Those, any that were in the CD program.
Got it. Okay.
But as far as, the rising 5th graders would be, if we let them have the option to stay, they are the students who were in kindergarten at Laurel Hill and they were rezoned. And so, I do think we should give them that option because they would have been rezoned twice in elementary school.
And they are the only class, correct?
Unless you count CD.
Okay.
They're the only one that, as far as K5, that
Right. So
that
like then that
we
one
done
public
twice,
comment
the
about
literally
the,
same student. What'd you say?
basically that CD person would need to apply to transfer or whatever. Like that's the only other, not question, public comment that, we got today was that other group of CD kids who, as much as I love the CD program, is like not really considered like the graduating class type thing because of kindergarten, because of the small amount. But that's what I was just wondering, how many people were going back and forth or potentially.
Right, those CD students back during the rezoning when they were rezoned, and so then they started the next year kindergarten at Carolina Park. So they'll be the rising 4th graders.
Right, and just looking at the numbers, since we have gone low on rezoning, I don't think I would feel comfortable grandfathering in any more than 5th graders that year, because otherwise we might go over capacity again.
Yeah, I agree. Our numbers, we know we're low. And that would be, and that kind of, sort of defeats the purpose of rezoning, and it also sets a precedent. That's not how we do our transfers. We give priority to students who are finishing, whether it's high school, middle school, elementary. And so that's consistent in our rezoning. Marty, do you feel the same way? Only give the option to fifth.
Yes. Yes, that's usually what we do.
All right, well, I make a motion that we approve the grandfathering option. I've written this motion down. I might have it. Let's see. I make a motion to approve the grandfathering option to allow rising fifth graders for the 2021 to 2022 school year to have the option to remain at Carolina Park Elementary. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we have a grandfathering option. And now, yeah, we were going to talk, we talked about this last time, sort of a grandfathering option, not really, but I know we had discussions about this coming school year. Of course, anyone can make a transfer request, and we have a transfer request window right now. But I think there was discussion about this board. If y'all were interested in making some sort of statement that we could put up on the website or something that, this board will consider transfer requests from Carolina Park Elementary into Laurel Hill Primary or Pinckney for this coming year. So, of course, any transfer, it wouldn't really be a grandfather, it wouldn't be anything automatic, but I don't know. I mean, are your feelings that, do you feel, board members, that this is something that needs to be conveyed to families as part of this rezoning decision, that our board is open to hearing those transfer requests?
Absolutely. My feeling is if a family knows they're going to be impacted by the rezoning the year after this year, and they want their children to start in the schools now, that they should 100% have the ability to transfer and feel comfortable that we are going to look at that with every intention, as long as there is room to let them transfer.
Right, and we can't predict how many would take that option, and which is why we can't make it automatic. And we also, even if it's approved, it's up to the school district as far as each grade level if there's space.
That sounded like a motion to me.
So I think I can make a motion. I think we need some statements on the website with this decision. I think we need a statement about that grandfathering option, and I think a statement about, that whether you call it a willingness or, we want to make a statement about the student transfer for this school year. So, and actually I sent board members, I sent you that language. So we can go ahead and approve that. Let me make sure, I gotta change some dates. And we did do fifth graders. All right, can you
I do have a question, and maybe Jeff, you can answer this regarding transfer windows. We know that the window closes on the 15th, and we were going to have a meeting to listen to those transfers on the 22nd. Is there, I don't think that the date, or maybe it has been, but for K through 5, is there a confirmation on the date that school is going to start? Because there was banter about it reopening maybe 5 days early, in which case that transfer window becomes very, very tight for parents to find out. So is there any update from CCSD on a reopening date for schools?
School will not open early. So the earliest the schools will open is August 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Okay, good. So we're on the same timeline for that to get those in. Well, yeah, Marty, you said that sounded like a motion, so I bet I'll make it a motion. We want to document all this.
Okay.
Let's see. I make a motion that our board allows students currently zoned for Carolina Park Elementary to make voluntary student transfer requests to Laurel Hill Primary and Pinckney Elementary. Did I say this? for the 2020 to 2021 school year. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that, you know, that's not, we're not granting something that someone doesn't have anyway. We're just kind of putting that out there. It's summertime. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and this information, I think it'll be helpful to get it out. All right, so board members, I did send you, I think that our grandfathering decision, okay, first of all, the rezoning decision needs to go up like it was with our last two ones on our website. You know, this is the, whatever, the, I don't think we have to make any special direction on that. I see 50 does, they will do that normally, is that they put up the rezoning decision on our Carolina Park rezoning section on the website. But I think also after that map 4 that is shown, I think that these two statements, and I'll read them into the record and I'll email them to Stephanie if we approve it, are also put there because I think it gives direction, and this time we don't have to worry about the word not getting out to families who weren't on this call or didn't hear from a friend. So, and I emailed this to you all as board members. I don't know if you have it, but the first statement would be on June 29th, 2020, the District 2 Constituent Board voted to allow rising fifth graders for the 2021-2022 school year the option to remain at Carolina Park Elementary for their final year if they were rezoned. The school district should convey that option to parents and keep record of students choosing to remain for fifth grade. That was the first one, and the reason, you know, that means it doesn't have to come through us. It's something normally a principal handles himself, like Jay White here did for Lang. He sends a letter, he keeps it. It's not, you know, we're not telling CCSD what to do. We're just saying it's you know, a message that needs to get to families, and they can keep record of that. So let's approve that statement first. Does anyone have a problem with that statement going up on the website?
I don't.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve that statement. Is there a second?
I have a question though. So we're putting the statement out, but we're asking the principal to make sure that that goes out to the families that it affects.
Well, I didn't want to specify, I didn't want to tell the school district what to do and say the principal needs to do this. That's why I just said the school district, and whether it's a director, I think it should be the principal. Maybe Mr. Antonelli is listening or will hear, but that's definitely something in the past that principals have done, is to relay that. I want to make sure it's done. We did have hiccups with the Moultrie rezoning, and the decision didn't go out, and there was kind of uncertainty about with grandfathering. That's why I think we voted on it. There's a statement, you know, there it is. I think it just makes it more clear. But by saying the school district should convey the option, that leads to, you know, whoever they decide to do it. You think it'd be better to say the principal should? I mean, we don't really.
Why don't we send that information to Mr. Antonelli?
Yeah, that will be done also, but yeah.
Well, I mean, and word it in a way that, I'm trying to think how we did Moultrie and or Mount Pleasant Academy and Whitesides and all that. It went through the school, actually took that over and sent the letters out. They didn't send them home with the students. They mailed them. And I can't think of how we could do that, but I think that's what needs to be done, not just on the website and hope that people hear this or read this.
Not all the kids in the zone go to that school. So if you're talking about Antonelli sending out letters, not everybody in that zone go to his school.
Yeah, I think we can do both. I think, Marty, you're right. It can't hurt. We can also say, you know, Mr. Antonelli, we approve this whatever, we approved this. But then like Jeff said, they have a communication division that sent out the robocall to, I think, everyone that, lives over this way. So that's why I thought it was safer just for our statement says the school district, and Jeff and Carolyn, whoever sees that. So we can do both, right? We leave it school district and then we'll send this to Mr. Antonelli.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to a robocall, but I think the statements need to, we want to be sure that our statements are in the record tonight and on the website, because we just want to make sure, and then we can, go on with the summer and make sure it's all wrapped up. Because the last time we did it was the summer, and it gets tricky, and it domestic out with multi.
That's right.
All right, so I made a motion to approve that first statement about grandfathering. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, then the second one, if you don't have it in front of you, is about that. Listen, we're going to take transfer requests. We will hear that. That still needs to go through us. So to help alleviate overcrowding for the 2020-2021 school year, the District 2 Constituent Board voted to allow students currently zoned, for Carolina Park Elementary to make voluntary student transfer requests to Laurel Hill Primary and Pinckney Elementary. Transfer cases are decided on a case-by-case basis, and the deadline for making a request is July 15th, 2020. More details on transfer requests can be found at this link, and then we'll link them to the school district's transfer information, because there's a lot of good information there. And I had, then after both of these statements, I added, please note that grandfathered students and other transfer students are not provided transportation by the school district. And I think that gives all the information so they understand very clearly that we've given these options. And sometimes people don't realize that transportation is not provided.
Right.
We don't have any edit or changes to those last two parts.
But they get transportation the following year.
Grandfathered students they finish 5th grade, and they don't receive, if they're not zoned for that school, they don't get transportation. Are you talking about which ones are you talking about?
Well, I guess maybe both. Can you say that one more time? So for the grandfathered kids, they don't get transportation?
No. Is that correct, Jeff? Right? I mean, we grant them ahead of time a transfer back in. So no, 250 is not going to, correct me if I'm wrong, not going to send buses back into a neighborhood we just rezoned out of. No. And that's not new. I mean, that is, the rising 5th graders have the option to stay if they, because we know families out.
And then that's the same for the kids who might transfer in a year early?
Yep.
Yeah, and now I see what you're saying. If they transfer a year early to get, not everyone's going to want to do that because you don't get transportation. But yeah, for next year, there's no, if they're choosing to transfer, then they're choosing to drive their student there. But when they are rezoned, yes, they would get transportation at that point.
Okay.
All right, so any edits or changes to any of that language? I make a motion that we approve those last two parts I just went over. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so in Stephanie, I will that. You don't have to go back and listen to that. I will email that to you. And so, Jeff, is there anything that we've approved those statements and we would like them on the part of the website that is D2, along with the rezoning decision? We do need that announcement to go out, I guess, to the same group of people who received the robocall that we were rezoning, that there was a survey. Is that possible to set that up, that the school district sends out that notice to the same group? Or do you think a different target, maybe the only affected students? I mean, I think they're all affected because more students will be coming to the Park West schools.
I think if a robocall is going to go out with an announcement, it should be the same group of families that got the first announcement. So if they're not in the zone, they can realize the decision's been made and they're not affected.
Mm.
Okay. And do you know, last time when the survey went out, did the robocall, usually an email is attached with that and they also get an email? Do you know, does anyone know, did parents just get a robocall or did they get a robocall and the email?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I usually get both.
Well, it can't hurt. I mean, if we can get both, that would be the best, just because I've even heard today someone say, I had a message from CPSD, but I didn't hear it all, you know, something. So it can't hurt if it's possible to have both. And then to have that decision up with the map up on the website. All right. So that was D, what we just went over about approval of notification format. So everyone's good with a robocall to the same group of people that got the survey, robocall announcing the new line with with an email too, with maybe a link to that. And then we'll also put the statements up on the website, and I will also email that to Mr. Antonelli.
Okay.
That's helpful. All right. All right. The last thing is, now we chose a map that was not as many students as we could have done. And we said that, well, we're going to push for this building to be expanded. So I sent to you board members, and we don't have it on screen, so it was a draft, approval of communication to them regarding building expansion. So did everyone have a chance to read the letter, board members? Were there any edits, changes, anything I left out? I'll read it into the record, but before I start, was there any big problem? I'll read
Sarah,
it. Yes,
when did you send that?
Came with the other ones.
Did you get the statements about grandfathering and transfer?
No. No. That's okay. I followed you. I'm all right. Go ahead.
I'll read it, and it's in your email. It was after our last board meeting, so
Okay.
I'll change the date to June 29th because we moved our meeting from last week. Addressed to the CPSD Board of Trustees. All right, the Moultrie Constituent District 2 Board of Trustees recommends that you prioritize the expansion of Carolina Park Elementary CPE by August of 2022 in the Phase 5 Capital Projects Plan. Whether or not the sales tax referendum passes this November, this building expansion is needed to prevent more overcrowding in District 2. It is our understanding that the cost of the expansion is approximately $10 million. Our board just completed the unfortunate task of rezoning CPE only 3 years after it opened. Rezoning is disruptive at any time, but particularly in this case of rezoning the same neighborhoods twice in such a short time period. It is a practice our board strives to avoid. To handle the current overcrowding at CPE, it was suggested that our board consider an extreme solution of capping enrollment. Fortunately, we did not have to go that route, which would have divided families and neighborhoods. Instead, the CD program at CPE was temporarily moved to another location, and the school principal, Mr. Antonelli, has done everything possible to make the space work for this coming school year. At our board meeting tonight, we rezoned about, and I'm going to have to fill that in with 175, or we'll look back at that. We rezoned about 175 students from CPE to Laurel Hill Primary and Pinckney Elementary, effective for the 2021-2022 school year. That rezoning is a long-term solution for the students moved, but only a temporary solution for the needs of our area. This elementary school building expansion is needed to handle the projected growth in District 2. Thank you for considering our recommendation to expedite the expansion of CPE by August of 2022 to alleviate the persistent overcrowding in District 2 schools. Please let us know if you have any questions about this concern and request. That's the letter. And I did, to Jeff's point about having space by August, 20 Park West schools. That's why I said overcrowding in District 2. So I do think there's going to be a more comprehensive look at the whole district. And, you know, as Trey said, we're not moving Mount Pleasant Academy all the way up to Park West schools, but I think there will be a trickle effect, and we do have some areas in between that are growing in the middle. So there any, was that number right?
That was a very good letter, Aunt Sarah. Very good.
I appreciate that, Marty. I think, and I, you know, the reason I highlighted all those things that, you know, that is pretty extreme that we actually talked about capping enrollment. I don't think that's ever been done. Definitely not in District 2. You know, I feel strongly that we need to advocate for that. I've looked at other areas, and I'm not privy to all the, you know, I just feel like that we do have the need in District 2 for more. But so were there any, was 100, do you feel good about saying we rezoned about 175 students? I think
174 is what's on the paper, but that doesn't matter. You're close enough.
Technically we did rezone about, I'll put about 175 because we did, whether they go to school or not, they've been rezoned for other schools. But anything I left out, any glaring problem with that letter? I'm going to change the date and put 175 students. Any other changes?
Sarah, is that date, Jeff, is that date feasible? August 20, what'd you say? August 22 of 22?
It's possible, but I'll let Jeff answer it.
I think
It's
probable.
He told us it's possible, but that's like, it's
Yeah.
I told you it's possible. I think it is, but it's improbable.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, improbable is that's the first time I'm hearing that word about it, but I think last time we talked a good deal about it, and it was if everything, you know, lines up, but that's why we're writing the letter. We do feel strongly as a board, and we're going to continue to advocate that, and I hope that families will as well. All right, so if there are no changes to that, I make a motion, we approve this letter to the county board. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Stephanie, I will change the date on this and put in 175 students, and I've got it on our letterhead. I will sign it, and then I'll scan it and send it to you. All right. Anything else about rezoning, Carolina Park rezoning? We're done. Any other?
Woo!
All right, before we go, we, and thank you, Marty, for bringing this up. We kind of went out of order and scheduled our July meeting for a time that gives us enough time to do transfers, that I think is right on top of the county board's meeting, which is July 20th. So I don't want to run into the problem of not, well, first of all, we need to decide what kind of format we want our meeting. This is going to be a mostly executive session meeting to handle transfer requests. So we will be an open session to open and to close with the votes, but all, you know, sensitive student information will be in executive session. So what we did, there'll be no public comment. Actually, I think there'll be no public comment. It'll be a special call meeting just to hear transfers. So board members or anyone, if your thoughts on how you want to conduct this meeting. I mean, we have had Zoom live stream meetings last few times. because it was rezoning and we had public comment. For the spring transfers, we had call-in, and so people can call in. There's nothing to see. There's no maps, anything. So it would be like what we did before. People can call in. They would hear us open, and they would be, they would not be able to hear executive session. So I don't think we'll have any call-ins. But any strong feelings about how we're going to be able to conduct this meeting on July 20th at the same time the county board is also meeting, using the YouTube live stream channel.
Ms. Johnson, if you'll remember, we did some afternoon calls the last time we did student transfers. So I don't know if that's a possibility again, doing it earlier in the day before the regular board meeting.
Would that be easier for you, Kristen?
Probably, yes.
But I don't know what time they're meeting, but it's their one
It's
meeting.
all-
It's like all day probably. They are having their committee of the whole and their regular board meeting. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're starting at what, 12, 1.
Usually, yes.
So, so the only reason that would be a conflict is if we want to live stream on the one channel and if no liaison or anyone else from CCSD can be there for the meeting. So, Jeff, do you have, is it going to be a conflict for you or Carolyn and Stephanie to have our meeting the same time the county board is having their big meeting in July?
As long as you wouldn't mind having a substitute for this meeting, I suspect both Carolyn and I will have to be at that county meeting. So, I mean, it should be fine as long as you guys are okay with it.
Okay, because normally we would have met that Wednesday, but we backed it up because we want to make sure we get those transfers. But then, so I mean, I think what we have and what we, now have on record is that we're meeting that Monday at 6. Now, if we can change that, we do need a vote if we want to change it from 6 today. So, Kristen, what did you say? 6 is the same?
We can do earlier.
We can do earlier. Okay. Does anyone want to make this earlier? And Stephanie, would you be able, are you flexible on that Monday?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
What would be your schedule, Stephanie? Since we have to.
I'll be open pretty much. I have stuff early morning. I'll be available after 10, anytime that works for you all. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, then who do we have? How many do we have to have substitute here? Jeff's position, Carolyn, we're going to have Stephanie. So we need 2.
We
don't actually need any, but we would like to have one liaison and definitely Stephanie.
We'll get a liaison. In fact, I mean, I think I'd like to see if Bob Olson can make it. Since he's handling the transfers anyways, it would be helpful. It might be even helpful to you guys to have him here. I can check with Bob.
We haven't seen Bob in a while. That would be good.
I know it. I know.
All right. So 2, 4, what time? I can't remember what time we did the last transfers. It was an afternoon.
We did 1 at 1 o'clock.
1?
1 o'clock, yeah.
Kristen, wasn't that hard for, where's Kristen? I don't know. Was it that hard for Kristen? Did she have to leave?
Oh, I'm here. No, it's
Oh,
always
hey.
the same.
Is 1 o'clock hard for you?
No, it's the same. She's
Okay. All right. So 1 o'clock, everyone's good with 1 o'clock on July 20th?
On the 20th.
Before I say that, Stephanie, do you know, we had 3 pending expulsion cases, and also if there were any, of course, this is a weird world we live in now, but we have 3 pending expulsion cases, and we normally would see, if schools do go back face-to-face, I guess, we would normally hear readmit. Does anyone know, is anything like that coming our way? Because we would have to do that in July.
What I'm aware of, because Ms. Champagne and I talked about this, is that the State Department of Ed, I think, dismissed most of those cases unless they were of a criminal nature. I don't know how that goes in regards to returning to school, but I know we didn't have to hear them because of the way things are now, but I will get some clarification on that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Do you have any information on that? No. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, just if something comes and we have to do a special call, we will, but if there is any kind of readmit or, yeah, and if you can send me, so I would be, that's kind of, I would think that would be interesting that the state could make that decision. I understand our school district might make that decision and I would understand it, but, yeah, just let us know, because we know we've got those pending and possibly readmit cases.
Okay.
All right, so I make a motion that we change the time of our July meeting to from 6 p.m. to 1 p.m. on July 20th. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
All right, so we're set, and for transfers, so they'll close the 15th. We'll get Stephanie, what's your, for binders? We might not even need binders. I mean, I have no, do you have a count of any that have come in so far? It hasn't.
We do not even have 50 yet. So we were at 46 the last time I looked. So I can put together packets that may not need to be as large as the binders last time, but you know, we can do something. I can mail them again, or depending on conditions, we could meet somewhere. I can deliver them.
Yeah, that's actually more than I expected. So that's a lot for summer transfer to have to be at 50 already, or 40, whatever it is. But at least we've made our rules for this year, so to make some of them kind of clean cut. Okay, and then Marty, I just need to tell you that I am out of town on the 20th. I should be able to call in, but I am in a remote location. That, you know, if something goes crazy, then I'll ask you to run that meeting. But you can do
Okay.
the transfers.
Woohoo!
Right. Anything else anyone wants to share before we break until, I think we're going to break until that meeting, July 20th. Stephanie will let us know about binders.
Nothing here.
Thank you, Jeff and Angela and BJ, for all your work on this. This
Oh,
reading.
yes.
It's been crazy to do one in this situation, but I appreciate all the work and all the meetings and everything. So
It's BJ and Angela.
we'll move on to the next one. So
BJ and Angela do all the work. I just cheer on the sidelines.
Oh, thank you all.
I make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Enjoy your summer.
Earliest ever.